Welcome back, everybody. This Week in America and the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Great to have you with us on the program today. Website, of course, thisweekinamerica.us. Our special guest is award-winning author, contemporary spiritual teacher, transformational life coach, Suzanne Eder. She is supporting people in finding and empowering their true calling, and she's with us on This Week in America to talk about that. Suzanne, welcome to the program. Great to have you with us.
Great to be here, Rick. I appreciate it.
I want to start by talking about your background. You are a CPA, have a very successful career dealing in corporate finance, human resources, and you went to a conference. And when you went to that conference, it literally changed your life. Talk a little bit about that experience and what it meant to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to. It was literally life changing, as you said, and it was many years ago. I won't say how many, but I was already firmly ensconced in my career, and I really thought that I had it all figured out. That I was just going to keep climbing that career ladder until I hit retirement age. And I went to a conference. It was a new agey type of conference, and the keynote speaker was a woman named Shakti Gawain, who back in the day was one of the leaders in the human potential movement. She was a best-selling author, and I had read several of her books and was just really eager to hear her speak. So I went to this conference, and sure enough, she walks out on stage, and I sensed from her this deep presence. She walked out on stage with such a feeling of peace and contentment, and she seemed to actually radiate happiness. And as she began speaking, I had this inner sense of, oh my gosh, that's what I want. I want not only to have that kind of a career when she's writing, she's teaching, she's speaking, she's literally helping people transform their lives. I wanted that, and I wanted what I sensed she was being. That deep sense of inner calm and peace was so appealing to me. And so this longing was born within me.
Were you happy? Were you happy with your corporate career?
I was not. I was not happy with it, and but I didn't really think there was anything wrong with being unhappy with it. I thought you weren't supposed to like your job. That's why they call it work. And that was, in fact, that's one of
Yes.
the things that someone I used to work with would say repeatedly. So I had to sort of let myself fall into that whole belief system that work is supposed to be just something you do to make good money and pay the bills, and then you retire someday and you can start living your life. So I wasn't happy, but nor was I at that point open to making a change. I had invested so much time and money in my education and in my career to that point. It didn't even occur to me that I could or would make a change. But when that experience happened at the conference and I saw Shakti Gawain, I had this newfound recognition that perhaps that was my cat.
It's been that kind of day, yes.
It has been that kind of a day. So yeah, I had this newfound recognition that perhaps I could actually create work that I loved. And to be honest, though, when I got home from that conference, I shut it down. I didn't even allow myself to consider the possibility that I could do that. It took many more years of attempting to fit myself into a job that really wasn't a good fit for me, that I finally gave myself permission to want what I really want. And that's just so fundamental to the work I do now with clients, is starting from that place of giving themselves permission to want what they really want and not what they think they should want or what they think is practical, or to really just dig deep and be willing to acknowledge what they really want.
That's a big leap from where you were to, okay, I'm going to go chase my dreams. Talk a little bit about the steps in between when you first decided, okay, I would like to go in a different direction. I need to nurture who I am, what I want to do. What are some of the steps along the way that you took that we could relate to actually let go of that fear and follow our dreams, follow what our intuition is?
Well, that's actually, your question really has the answer right in it, and that is to learn how to listen within, to listen to that intuition, or what I would call the inner voice, the inner guidance, because that's how our path is revealed. Many of us were conditioned to believe that we had to, establish an end point way out in the future and then plot these linear steps to get there. But what I've discovered, as have many others, is that a really deeply fulfilled life, an inspired life, a passionate life, it comes from the inside out. And so what we learn to do is trust the overall process and just take the step in front of us that there is to take. So I didn't know that I would end up here, for example, but one of the earliest steps that I took was I followed an impulse to get more information about a certain school, the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. It was a 4-year, it still exists, 4-year very intense program in mind, body, spirit, energy healing. And I was just drawn to that, and by that point I knew enough to pay attention to what I felt drawn to. So I gave myself permission once again to go to a workshop, and then at the end of that workshop, when they told us more about the school itself, I gave myself permission to listen and ultimately to enroll in the school. So I hadn't planned that. That wasn't part of what I thought I wanted to do. But again, what I'm finding is once we set an intention around creating and living a more fulfilled life, and we're willing to listen within to those deeper impulses. Another way I say it is to follow the tingle. So when you follow the tingle, you're led kind of step by step to the next action.
You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network. Guest on the program is Suzanne Eder. Her website is mysolidground.com. You can link onto our website and get all that information and link directly onto Suzanne's. That's at thisweekinamerica.us. It's interesting. You talk about stop talking yourself out of living your dreams. Do a lot of us do that where, okay, we would like to do this, but we sort of throw these obstacles in the way? Is that common when you're dealing with your clients, with the people you counsel?
It really is, Rick. It is so common. It's almost as if our minds have been conditioned to do that. So that's so much a part of this journey, is to learn how, I say, to love yourself to success and fulfillment. Learn how to support your dreams rather than to diminish them. Because typically somebody will come to me, they'll have a really great idea, that's something they want to pursue, or they won't have any idea at all, but they just know they want to move in a certain direction. But the second word out of their mouth will be, but, and it could be anything from, but I don't know where to start, to, but that would never work, or but that just isn't practical, or but I'm too old. So there are just countless things that we tell ourselves that we believe, and as long as we're believing them, that will shut us down. So a big part of this journey of living into our calling is about learning to step back from our habitual ways of thinking, to challenge those ways of thinking, and be willing to take on a new perspective. It's literally creating a new self-identity.
In 2003, Suzanne founded Solid Ground. That's an organization devoted to helping people awaken to their true magnificence. And that was a big step there, because now you're in all the way. You're in emotionally, you're in financially, in getting this started. How difficult is that barrier to overcome? And I guess if you believe in what you're doing, it makes it a lot easier, or certainly to a certain level easier to get involved and to take it to that level.
That's right, but you're once again taking such a great question, Rick. I had started to do the work that I loved with clients on the side. I was still in the corporate world for many years after I recognized that I wanted to do something differently. So I was working with clients on the side, and I had just kind of hoped or assumed that over time my corporate work would go down. I converted from employee to consultant at a certain point, and that my private coaching work would go up. But what was happening was they were just staying the same. I was putting in the same number of hours at my corporate consulting job and the same number of hours working on Solid Ground. And I realized I was the one who had to make a decision that it was important enough. I had to take it away from that on the side category and put it front and center in my life. So that was a real act of courage. And again, so much of this journey is learning how to navigate through fear so that we can stand in our truth and stand in our courage. There's all kinds of ways to do that, but fundamentally, we're all faced with choice points. Where will I choose to invest my time and energy and heart and attention? And I realized that for Solid Ground to grow, I needed to give it more of who I was, more of my time. So there was a specific choice point.
Suzanne Eder is our guest on This Week in America, award-winning author, contemporary spiritual teacher, and transformational life coach, supporting people in finding and empowering their true calling. She knows what she's talking about because she did it herself and did it successfully. Her website is Very simple, mysolidground.com. You can go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, and link directly with Suzanne's website. All sorts of great information there. She's available for individual coaching. And I know you do a lot of group organizational work as well as a facilitator. All that information is available at the website. I see two words that jump out as I'm looking at the website: growth and possibility. Let's talk about both of those and why they're so important in us really letting go, loving and understanding ourselves.
I think inherently we are beings who grow. We're inherently creative. To stay the same, to stagnate, doesn't feel good for any of us. But what we are typically trying to do in our lives is try to fit ourselves into a certain path or a certain way of being, and our natural impulse to grow gets stifled. So a lot of what I'm doing with clients is helping them reconnect with their own inner impulse to grow, to expand, to evolve. It's just such a natural part of who we are. So if we can see it, and if we can see it that way, as opposed to seeing it as, oh gosh, there's something wrong with me, I made a bad career choice, now I got to fix it. That whole perspective is itself diminishing. So when we think in terms of growth, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just growing beyond where I was, and now I'm eager to see what else is possible. So when we learn to think with a framework of growth and possibility, we become more relaxed, we become more inspired, we become more open.
You talk about getting unstuck from negative emotions. How do we do that? Just in some simple terms here, because we all we know that we're stuck in that, but we don't quite know how to get out of that. And even if we think we do, we talk ourselves back into the negative situation we're in to begin with.
That's right. There's a real art to this. The first thing to recognize is that our negative emotions, they normally have information for us. They're valuable indicators that we're in some way off course. I know when I was in the corporate world and was so unhappy there, I didn't recognize until later that the unhappiness itself was an indicator. So we want to feel our feelings. We want to actually acknowledge them and be curious about what they may be telling us. Now, let's say you're starting on the path that you want to be on, and you come up against some fear. Then you want to be curious about, what story am I telling myself that's creating this fear? So navigating these difficult emotions, it's kind of a two-step process. First, you want to let yourself feel the feelings, because if you try to block them or try to stuff them or ignore them or paste over them, they're still going to be there, diminishing the quality of your experience and really being a distraction. So the first thing we need to learn to do is actually feel our feelings, not analyze them, not talk about them, but just simply feel them. And then to be willing to take a look at the whole thought structure, the beliefs that we're holding that give rise to those negative feelings to begin with, and to be willing to challenge those thoughts and beliefs.
Unfortunately, rapidly running out of time. I want to go back to something we talked about in the beginning, because I think it's sort of the key of what you're talking about. Suzanne Eder is our guest on the program. Her website is mysolidground.com. And that's self-love, self-awareness. Is that where it all begins? We really can't attain much more until we put that in perspective and understand it's okay to love ourselves.
Yes, not just okay, but absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. We have to really get that we are worthy. We are worthy of living a deeply fulfilled life. And in fact, that in doing so, we are of great service in this world, because, we all love to be with and around people who are shining, who are passionate, who are uplifting. So when we dare to love ourselves, we bring out the best in ourselves, and that's the best that we can give others. So self-love is just fundamental to this.
Where do we go wrong? I would assume as children we grow up and we probably have that self-love, that self-awareness. And is it through schooling? Where is it that we suddenly start doubting ourselves and that self-esteem really takes a plunge?
There's so many places that it could have originated in any one of our experiences. But, in general, when you think about it, when you just think about how we're conditioned to think, we're pretty conditioned to see things in terms of what's wrong, what's missing, what needs to be fixed. And that includes looking at ourselves that way. And, sometimes it's couched in a positive frame, like self-improvement, but underneath of it is this sort of underlying sense that there's, I got to keep improving or else I'll I'll lose ground or I won't be as successful as I could be. So there's an underlying fear around, am I good enough? That may not be fully conscious in a lot of people, but culturally, there's a huge amount of conditioning to look again for what's wrong and what's missing. And it absolutely can come from even just our grading system in school. An A is better than a B is better than a C, and so we start to get a certain amount of fear around being good enough.
When you listen and you look at the testimonials at the website, mysolidground.com, there are several things there. Everybody says Suzanne really helps me understand. And that's, in my mind, that's part of the process. I can understand what I need to do differently. The key is, they say, she also teaches me how to use that. I have that understanding. Now I have to have the practical application. Is that something you're proud of as you're dealing with people? The fact that, okay, here's what you need to do. Here's how you get that accomplished.
Absolutely. Gosh, that's why coaches exist, right? Because we're actually giving people not just helping them find their own clarity and understanding, but then, putting that into practice. In fact, I say that let's redefine the word practical to mean putting your passion into practice. And I help you do that. I help you kind of translate your day-to-day activities to include things that move you forward rather than hold you back. And they're simple things like keeping an ongoing list of your accomplishments. Something like that is a powerful way of focusing your attention on what you want and where you're going, and retraining your mind to focus on that rather than on all the reasons you can't. So simple practices. Meditation is a hugely powerful practice to help us learn to step back from our thinking and to get calm and centered. So there's all kinds of ways that I help people, again, shift where they're focusing, how they're thinking, so they can move forward.
How rewarding, at about 30 seconds left in the program, how rewarding is it for you when you see someone go through this transformation, where they come and they're all bound up and it's not really the life they want, and suddenly you see them transforming into happy people, self-aware people that are accomplishing something and feel good about themselves for probably many of them the first time in years?
It is indescribable, Rick. It's just the best. I love what I do. Love it. I love it. It feels wonderful to be able to support someone in that.
Suzanne Eder has been our guest on the program. We will have Suzanne back for more programs. Her website is mysolidground.com. More information at our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can log on and link on and get direct information from Suzanne that way. Again, mysolidground.com. Suzanne, look forward to having you back. Thank you for sharing some time with us today. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Rick. Had a great time.
You're listening to This Week in America on the Blue Funk Broadcasting Radio Network.